So we mentioned tragedies having this very compressed action. That's definitely true in this play, The Agamemnon. Agamemnon's story is quite straightforward and relatively easy to tell. We've got a very beginning scene where there's this watchman. He's sitting up on top of a roof and wondering what's about to happen. He's got his eye out. He's trying to see some kind of a beacon. There must be a beacon out there somewhere. Well, what he's looking for is a beacon that has been preset on a mountain that's as far away from Argos as this watchman is able to see, at the top of a mountain. And that mountain is got a pre-positioned fire that is positioned as far away from another mountaintop as a person is able to see sitting on that mountaintop, and so on and so on and so on. And these mountaintops lead all the way back to Troy. So seeing there's a mountaintop far away from Troy and seeing that Troy is burning, that person, the first man stationed at the signal fire, lights a fire on his mountaintop right nearby Troy. The one farthest away lights a signal beacon on top of his mountaintop, and so on, all the way around the Aegean Sea until the fire from Troy literally leaks out and comes over to Argos, comes over to Mycenae, Agamemnon's hometown. The fire from Troy has come and visited them. This technology of a signal beacon, really extraordinary. Clytemnestra gets word right away that her husband has conquered Troy. Now, that wanting to get that signal, you might have imagined if you were operating from an Odysseus and Penelope kind of standpoint, that they wanted to find out when their loved one was going to be home so they could have a nice reunion. Well, in this case, no, not at all. Clytemnestra wants to find out when her loved one's going to be home because she can set up things to kill him. That extra technology of the beacon signal being used to work out her own internal nastiness that works out inside this family. We've got a back and forth then. Clytemnestra appears. She has back and forth with the chorus, starts talking to them about what's been going on. The herald then appears and has a back and forth with the chorus as we're getting ready to see Agamemnon come. And then boom, Agamemnon arrives right near the beginning of the play, isn't it? It's not too far in. Agamemnon arrives and we have a long back and forth discussion between Agamemnon and his wife Clytemnestra. Their greeting is a far cry from, hi honey, I'm home, it's been 10 years, nice to see you. It's a back and forth kind of verbal test of wills. Not right out in the open, but very subtly in a subterranean way, they're taking each other's measure such that Clytemnestra is making sure that she's going to be able to kill this guy. And Clytemnestra, or Agamemnon, is just kind of trying to make his way into his own house again and figure out where things stand. Not very clever. Agamemnon is not held up in the mythical in Greek myth as being a clever man. He's an extremely strong man, but he's brutish. He's not very clever. And as another indicator of that, he comes back with his prize from wartime, his concubine new wife, Cassandra, and brings her right out into the open. And here she is, Clytemnestra. Here's your here's your new wife friend that's going to be my new wife. We'll have to find a place for her. Having multiple sexual dalliances, as we know from Odysseus, that just kind of happens. Greek men exonerated themselves from thinking of that as a bad thing. They just went ahead and thought that was just fine. But there clearly is a kind of line that Agamemnon's crossing here. He's being a bit brutish about it. You don't rub it in Clytemnestra's face. You would do it more subtly, but Agamemnon just waltzes in with Cassandra right there, and they have this conversation. Agamemnon and Cassandra go back and forth. Long verbal battle goes back as they kind of work their way back and forth. Then Agamemnon takes the invitation to trample on the Crimson Path. We'll have a lot to talk about when we deal with the thematics of the play in the coming lectures. Agamemnon and Cassandra and Clytemnestra then have a kind of long back and forth set of conversations. At that point, Agamemnon and Clytemnestra disappear behind the door. There they are back there. They disappear behind the door. And Cassandra then is invited in. Clytemnestra comes back out and says, "Oh, you young lady, please come. You're welcome too." And Cassandra then does this long, slow march toward the door. And as she's doing it, see what she's doing? She's actually seeing her own death. Cassandra is prophesying her own death. She sees what's going to happen behind that door, and it's going to involve her, and it's going to be very ugly. More to say on that too when we deal with the thematics. Then awful things happen behind the door. The doors burst open, and Aegisthus comes booming out, and we have a back and forth with the chorus as we try to figure out what just happened and how we're supposed to value that. It's a complex situation with lots of nasty stuff that's gone on and what we're supposed to make of all that. This scene is famously depicted in lots of different representations graphically. It's something that Greeks clearly spent some time thinking about. It arrests the imagination. The story of Agamemnon here emerging from his bath. You can see he still has his robes around him. Again, recovering this theme, we'll talk about it more, of the cleansing that's attempted to happen in Agamemnon's family line turns into a murder. A bath becomes a bloodbath. Aegisthus then thrusts the sword into him. This wonderful mixing bowl has a whole series of vignettes, aspects of the story of Agamemnon's house, all in a giant circle. And that circular pattern is used by the artist that makes the bowl. At one piece we have Aegisthus taking out Agamemnon. Cassandra is nearby, and here she's carrying her double axe. Well, she's aiming her double axe right there at her own son, her son who's involved in killing the father Agamemnon, with the daughter Electra nearby. The sons, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, all of them are just on top of each other, and the crime that's stuck inside this family seems to have no way of getting out. The spare action of this particular part of the story in the Agamemnon is going to lead us to this one very dense close-up look at one part of this story, Agamemnon's killing. Each piece of it is going to get pulled out. We're going to look forward to the nasty things that are going to happen later on in the Oresteia, and we're definitely going to look backward to all the things that have led up to this, including the story of the daughter of Agamemnon, Iphigenia, that we haven't talked about yet, daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra that we haven't talked about yet, the story of Iphigenia. All kinds of things to talk about, and get ready for some special flavors of ugly family nastiness coming up next.